It's the 13th of July, 2026. Coming up on today's Global Intelligence Agency Operations Report. Senator Lindsey Graham dies just a day after visiting Skyfall, a drone plant in Ukraine. Within hours after departing the plant, the Russians promptly bombed Skyfall after the U.S. senator states it would be a huge mistake for the U.S. not to partner with the Ukrainian tech company. We have all the intel behind the entire plan, and it will totally blow your mind. This information is beyond the Middle East, beyond just Lindsey Graham, and beyond Russia. It's worldwide. And it's still a game of musical chairs as the deep state attempts to reorganize itself with little to no understanding of what's actually happening. Unusual meetings occurred over the past week attended by various deep state members. Normally, humans would never be allowed to attend these meetings. However, it's all they have left on their side. The result? Well, certainly not what they expected. Major changes to your body, mind, and soul have occurred in order to prepare you for the upcoming reconnection, although some of these changes have been uncomfortable for some.
Amino acids play a vital role in maintaining your overall health and well-being. Not enough amino acids and protein daily can result in brain fog, hormone imbalances, digestive issues, cognitive function, lack of energy, lower immunity, decreased muscle strength, and much more. That's why we created our amino acid complex, packed with 21 free-form, easily digestible aminos that skip the breakdown and go straight to work energizing your mind and body. Used by athletes, vegans, and high performers, New Earth's amino acid complex helps your mind and body recover, rebuild, and renew daily. Subscribe now and optimize your life.
Well, it's the 13th of July, and it's been one heck of a time trying to get this report out. Now, I did stop for a little bit last night, and, well, because it's technically the 14th at the moment, I did stop for a little bit last night and made some phone calls to try to ease the blow, so at least they would know somewhat what we're about to say. The information that went out last night is the same information I'm going to give you, and sometimes it's easier if everybody kind of knows what's going on, because there's a lot of confusion amongst governments and deep state members and the lower echelon, because there are so many changes happening right now. Things are not happening according to their plan. And, well, it's time that everybody knew what their alleged bosses were up to. And it's time that you really understand kind of how all of this works. The changes that are taking place are, believe it or not, I know sometimes it doesn't feel like it, because the last week or so probably has been kind of a roller coaster, quite a bit, you know, at least for me. I'm sure it has for you as well, where we've had a lot of ups and downs. And as much as they and the machine tries to maintain its existence, it's just simply getting to be less and less effective, to the point where there are things that are frozen, things that are no longer working. The machine is basically overrunning itself, and it is unable to bring things even into its own reality the way that it used to. The same thing goes for operatives, and I'll tell you a little bit more about operatives and how that works as well. Even those that had the right and the privilege, you know, Q clearance, quantum clearance, whatever you want to call it, are also unable to go into their respective voids and white rooms and make changes to reality, even when the general population of this planet, aka yourselves, are still, to some degree, perceiving and witnessing reality changes for the machine. So that being said, let's get into this, what you're seeing in the news versus what is really happening behind the scenes. And this information is basically what even the news and the narratives and the operatives and the governments don't actually know nor understand to some degree. There are a few out there that have a general idea that they believe that they know what the plan actually is. But I can tell you with 100% certainty that even the Illuminati, even the deep state doesn't actually know the whole plan. You see, they're as much of a tool for the machine as, to some degree, we have been forced to be as well. So on that note, this intel is something you're never going to hear on basically any other channel. I can tell you that with 100% certainty. There is a reset plan in play, not only for the whole Middle East, but it's actually for the whole world. It's not our plan, and it's definitely not Source's plan, and it's definitely not even the deep state's plan. At least not the one that has been playing out in the past and currently as it relates to what you're seeing happening in the news. You may think that certain people dying or certain things going away appears to be a win for us, but in actuality, it's all just part of the game. So I'm going to break this down for you in detail today so that you can understand it, number one. And number two, I want you to start looking at the world in a different way. It's very important for you to understand how powerful you are becoming. And I know it doesn't feel like it, and I know there are a lot of days where you feel overwhelmed and small, but it's not true. It is simply not true anymore. There are a lot of you that may want to cling to the old way of things. You may want to focus on what the deep state is doing. I'm going to encourage you not to do that, and I will explain to you why. It's important that you participate in this change because it's all about you and your relationship with Source, or the source of all creation, and your witnessing of his and your joint creations. Let's call them joint or co-creations. Thoughts are things. In the past, your thoughts could be distorted by a machine, inverted by a machine. And that option for whatever is left of the old materium is no longer the case. Does the deep state know this? Yes, as of last night, they are now aware of why their machine is not giving them the things that they want, even when it tells them or has told them that on the new moon, which is on the 14th, it would be today, it tells them that it's going to be possible on that day, or there's some other alignments happening with, believe it or not, Uranus and Pluto, and over the course of the next couple of days between now and the 25th, that they believe also, because the machine is telling them it is so, that a big change is going to take place. The deep state is also under the impression that they report to God, that they are the worthy ones, when in fact, it's all a deception. Deception has happened in many levels on this planet, and these people can't get past their own ego to understand that they too are being deceived, even though repeatedly it happens every single day and every single month. There are others that are so wrapped up and entangled in the machine that it's all they can actually see. They never called to question why things aren't working. Hopefully, this is where the bit of compassion comes in. Hopefully, they can find the source within themselves and find some wisdom, because we get it and they also get it. It within themselves, so that they can actually understand, look, this is what happened. It's just a fact that it happened. And perhaps we can move on in a different way in this world. So on that note, I'm going to start with regular news and the news behind the news, because this one is really important. And I'm going to start with Jared Kushner. Haven't heard me say that in a while, have you? So let's talk a little bit about Mr. Kushner. We know what the news tells us. We know that he's obviously involved with the Trump family. He obviously is married to Donald Trump's daughter. He's obviously been a part of a lot of different things, and some of those things I've told you. But currently, at this moment, he is an informal advisor, a senior advisor to the president. Now, he is an informal advisor and not an official advisor. And what that technically means is he has taken no oath of office, and he is not bound to any ethics nor things like the Stock Act, in which members of the government allegedly are not allowed to profit. And profit he intends to anyway. He is not actually a government official. And when I say he is a presidential advisor, yes, in the United States, but also to many other presidents currently, as well as prime ministers and others. He basically is an advisor to every government in the world at this time. I'm laughing about this a little bit. Okay. So whether a country has a president, a prime minister, a king, or any other type of leader, doesn't make a difference. It's all the same. He is an advisor. He is one of a few advisors, but currently he is the one that is most active worldwide at this time. He currently also, and has for quite some time, held a seat in what we call the non-Jewish / fake Jewish Chabad and or Sanhedrin. You haven't heard me mention the Sanhedrin in a while. In the past, the Sanhedrin has all but disappeared and all but reappeared. The reason why things disappear and reappear, at least in this particular case, is because when someone falls away, the next one in line for that particular seat automatically begins to take that seat. Sometimes this Jewish Illuminati, or the Sanhedrin version of the Illuminati, and I hesitate to use the word Jewish because there are actually some Jewish people within this Illuminati. Some of these Jewish people also practice magic from things like the Zohar and the Kabbalah, if you're not familiar with those things. And they use the laws of what is natural and things that appear in the Torah and old scripts and all kinds of things in order to allegedly weave the fabric of reality because they are being told that they are God's chosen ones and that they are serving God. Now, God must be an anagram for something else other than the creator of the entire universe. In this particular case, I can think of many things that God could possibly stand for, but in this particular case, it is not the actual creator. That is a lie they're being told, but it makes them feel worthy. Remember, this is all about the Maslow's triangle, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You can look this up if you've never heard of it. At the top of it is morality. They believe they are greater than, definitely greater than the majority of other humans on this planet, for sure. They also feel that it is their job and their duty to serve the Creator. Now, if you look at things from our perspective, there's not a whole lot that we wouldn't do for the Creator of the entire universe, us, and everything in it. We would work tirelessly to ensure that the world changes in accordance with the divine plan. They believe, and they don't understand, and they cannot see the difference. Because the machine gives them knowledge, it gives them all the things, and more important than anything else, the machine feeds their ego. The more the ego is fed, the more they act out of ego and not as a part of the whole, meaning the super consciousness of the Creator itself. So, Kushner has been fighting for quite a while to take the top seat in this particular group of 12/13, if you include a machine, for quite some time. He performed great feats in Iran, has secured the country, therefore, the entire Middle East, based on his work there several months back that I mentioned to you in other reports. He also is doing a bang-up job in his own mind and in his own opinion on behalf of every government. So when you're seeing in the news, China is doing this, Russia is doing that, Ukraine is doing this, Israel is doing that, the Gaza Strip is doing this, the Hezbollah is doing that, the South African government is doing this, the Brazilian government is doing that. It doesn't really make a difference because in this particular case, you're mostly looking at Kushner and decisions that are being made by what you would call the board. If you're seeing information come out about the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve changing rates and the Federal Reserve is broke and the Federal Reserve is going away and the Treasury is coming up and you're seeing all of these varying narratives out there, you can thank, in this particular case, in part, not in totality, in part, you can thank Jared Kushner. Now, Jared is one of several contenders for this position. And the way that the machine actually works is the machine will tell 40 or 50 people, if there are 12 seats in the game of musical chairs, the machine will tell all of them that they are the top contender, but don't tell anybody else. It will whisper in their ear. It'll give them information that makes them feel greater than all of the other contenders. Look at all of the things that you did. In much the same way, especially last weekend, the machine attacks you. In an equal and opposite way, the machine last weekend spent a lot of time telling people you are less than. You can never achieve anything. Look you're going round and round in circles. Why are you listening? Don't pay any attention to what you think you can do, because I'm going to tell you right now, you can't. And it's going to name for you all of the times in your life where you feel that you have failed. It's going to push your buttons, your emotional buttons. It's going to remind you of people you couldn't save. In other words, people that died, whether naturally or in an accident. It doesn't make a difference. It's going to remind you of how sad you were during these times and how helpless you felt. It's going to reiterate, or it was over the weekend, this past weekend, it was reiterating things like all the things that you've prayed for, and God's never really come, for you. He's never actually fulfilled any of these prayers for you, or the meditations or your manifestations. Of course he hasn't. Why do you still have faith in this guy? Why do you have faith in Source? Come on. It's going to make you basically feel in whatever way, emotionally, mentally, and physically, it was designed to make you feel worthless. More importantly, it's designed to tell you that God is worthless. Why? Because it's a strategy that the machine came up with to try to convince you that you are less than. Because the world is changing and the machine is scared of you. So every time you start to feel things that make no sense, like for some people, they had to dig really deep. I had somebody reach out to me that said that they remember a friend's death that happened almost 40 years ago, and how sad they were at that time, and how emotionally distraught, and how they began to question why this person, of all people, this wonderful light being, was taken from this planet. And then they revisited that sad feeling, overwhelming sad feeling of remembering that death again, like it happened yesterday. The feelings were so strong. It wants to keep you depressed. It wants to keep you non-believing in yourself, and definitely non-believing in Source, so that it can control you. It has no choice, because believe me when I tell you, that machine needed you more than you need it. Okay, so continuing on. Let's go back to regular news. So we've already discussed Kushner before. Now we're going to discuss him again, because he's coming up all over the place in intel associated with varying things that are happening in today's world. Such as, there is a current bill on the floor called the 2027 U.S. National Defense Authorization Act, or the NDAA for short, which is designed to end aid to Israel. Now, I'm sure all of you that hate Israel or don't like Israel, because there's a number of you that reached out to me that said, oh, this is a great thing. No more aid to Israel. Not everything is as it appears. Currently, the U.S. government gives around just slightly less than $4 billion per annum to Israel to actually support the IDF and the Mossad and military operations occurring in the Middle East, as it is beneficial to the plan. Technically, you could say that they're being spoon-fed small spoons, enough so that Israel cannot become independent and cannot act on its own accord. Now, Israel is also announcing, or Netanyahu has announced in an interview, and we'll play that in a little bit for you. Hang on just a second on that one. Israel is also touting that their economy is robust and that they actually don't need aid anymore. They say that the Mossad has better intel than the CIA, and it would be beneficial to the United States to form a partnership with the United States military and intelligence community on things such as technology, namely defense technologies. All right, let's go ahead and roll that clip.
Last conversation I had with him, I said, Lindsay, we've come of age. We have a robust economy. We can take care of our own, financing our own weapons for the defense of Israel and defense of our common interests with America. So I'm going to phase out the support, the military support for Israel over a period of years and bring it down to zero. We can do it. And he went ballistic. He said, no way, you can't do that, because he was so concerned with our security, which he believed was your security, that he actually fought the Prime Minister of Israel on keeping America's aid or actually increasing it. I'm calling it from aid to partnership. So we take away the money that is given to Israel, which is one part, but the other part is we co-invest in equal measures in the new technologies that are needed to give our military and your military the advantage. So there are some unbelievable projects. So we invest jointly and take the fruits equally. You move from aid to partnership, and I think that represents what Israel is. And remember, the other thing is that we share with America unbelievable intelligence to save American life. General Keegan has said that when he was working in American intelligence, what Israel was giving the United States was worth, he said, 5 CIAs. I'm not trying to be mathematically exact, but Israel's contributions to America's defense are important. Our technology is incredible. And since yours is incredible too, and you're the great champion of liberty and free markets, I think the meshing of our two great countries of talent would strengthen America's position, competitive position, both in the economic marketplace and in the military battlefield in many important ways. So that's the idea. The idea is to take away aid, one-sided aid, and move it into bilateral investments for common benefit.
It certainly brings up some issues of...
Okay, so a couple key things I want you to take a look at from this video. And if you need to go back and replay it, go ahead and replay it. These are clips from an interview that Netanyahu did on TV. Now, he stumbles over the part about, the economy as it relates to possible economic cooperation. He stresses the fact that he wants a military and intelligence partnership with the United States. He also states that the economy is quite robust of Israel. Now, when you go take a look at what Israel technically, quote unquote, has at this moment in time, I can tell you there's nothing robust about what Israel has. Netanyahu works very closely with Jared Kushner because he too is a member of the Chabad or the Sanhedrin Illuminati. Now maybe doesn't hold quite a position that Kushner is hoping to get. However, he also has been told by a machine and other people that he too will rise to the top seats within the Illuminati if he continues to do his quote-unquote good work and be an excellent mouthpiece for them. So for those of you that are actually sending me information about Netanyahu, which somebody in particular does totally, like every day, 100 times a day, understand he's just a mouthpiece for a bunch of other people and ultimately a machine. Okay. So now we're going to talk about player number 2 in the game. On the other hand, player number 2 in this particular case, which used to actually work together hand in hand and still actually does, whether they know it or not, with the Sanhedrin and the Illuminati. It's the Sanhedrin Illuminati, excuse me. This other player is known for running all militaries and intelligence worldwide. Most every single defense contractor is also run and created by these people. Trump is a member of this organization, the Mormons, the Amish, and you've got the Q people in the revolving door of whatever's left there and their alleged ability to continue to take someone from within the ranks and give them some clearance and bring them up to the party is never ending, just like it is with the Sanhedrin. Now, this particular number 2 player is also a big part of China, just like the Sanhedrin slash Chabad. I'll call them the Sanhedrin Illuminati for purposes of this report. Make it easier on me. Okay, they are also a part of China, Russia, U.S., every single nation. And they are being referred to at this time as the Bavarian Illuminati. Also involved with the Bavarians are the Jesuit Order and other secret societies like the Freemasons and all of these other people that you believe are doing bad things in the world, at least at the higher levels, 33rd degrees, all that. They're still lower on the totem pole in the Bavarian Illuminati. The Bavarian Illuminati also, is what you would call Black Sun. They are heavily invested in many different regions and areas of the world at this point, and they are very busy attempting to claim additional territories for themselves. Recently, they have appeared to be together over the last couple of years. They have also began to appear separately. They have made different deals with one side to the other, back and forth, based on past successes, attempted successes, and failures. Some of those attempted successes also involved me behind the scenes, such as funding giving to the U.S. government during the past administration was seen as a win for the Bavarians. And they lied and said that they were able to do it and achieve it. That is why when Trump got back into office 4 years later, they expected him to continue to perform like a dancing monkey. When that did not work out for the Bavarian Illuminati, did they start looking for answers? No, they just figured it's a matter of ratification. Maybe it's an alignment with Uranus they're waiting for. We don't know why it's not working, but the machine, of course, as the machine does, it strokes the ego of all of these people, letting them know, good job, God is happy with you, you've done the right thing, you are the worthy, you are all of these wonderful things that, quite frankly, you are not, and you are no better than all the rest of us that you intend to manage. The machine also tells these people that without them and all the good work that they do, all of us humans out here, or Homo sapiens on the planet, would be dead. We need them, that's what the machine says. We need their leadership, their illustrious, wonderful brains, and all the wonderful work that they do with quote-unquote God that is not God at all. Now, at the higher ranks, everybody knew it's not God. And when there were 3 players in the game at the top, I can tell you with absolute certainty, they knew too that it wasn't God. Now they have continued to play these people like a top for a long, long time, pitting them against each other in the end, and even now. The machine has given them false intelligence information from the God machine to places like Cheyenne Mountain, global headquarters in Vietnam, other headquarters in Antarctica and in the Arctic region. Also, this information is misspread through intelligence agencies and militaries around the world as to who the actual enemy actually is. The number one reason why the machine is going to play the blame game, it's so-and-so's fault. It's the Sanhedrin's fault. Sanhedrin people, it's the Bavarian Illuminati's fault. The reason why it does that is because the one thing the machine will never admit is, number one, it is not God. And number two, God has no power. Remember? In the eyes of the machine is the all-powerful. The ego is more powerful than the machine. The ability to bend and shape reality is its God-like gift it gives to people like these two Illuminati groups. Split or together, it doesn't make a difference. To the machine, it's making a difference because it needs to blame someone for its failures. And it will never, ever admit to these people that source is more powerful than it. It will never even acknowledge that source actually still exists, because in the machine's world, realities are created from mathematical equations and not miracles in any way, shape, or form. Okay. Fighting, not fighting, being played against each other. Again, this is a perception that they have. Technically, we could call it a deception. But nonetheless, you're watching the ball toss back and forth. It's like watching a ping pong ball game. And more importantly, as of today, they are fighting each other like crazy right now, blaming each other for the lie that the machine is actually telling them. Sorry, but it's true. Okay, now on to Lindsey Graham. Big news, big conspiracies. Who killed who? Russian networks are basically saying that, the Russians did it, Putin did it, he was given the nerve gas, the this, the that, and, he goes over and visits Ukraine. Russia doesn't like Ukraine, which is a complete and total lie. I've said that one time, and I'll say it 1,000 times. Russia and Ukraine are not enemies in any way, shape, or form. Russia and Ukraine are not enemies in any way, shape, or form. Understand that, accept it. They are run by the same people. They are both countries that are almost, not 100%, run by the Bavarian Illuminati. Heck, even the Ukrainian military wears the black sun on their uniforms. Come on, people. Putin did not save anybody's day. Lindsey Graham, is no more of a shyster than every other member of Congress. But they all do it. He just happened to get himself into a little precarious situation. So, Lindsey Graham passed away on Sunday. It's all over the news, and he died of an apparent aortic dissection extremely suddenly after a very brief and short illness. Allegedly, they say he had some kind of cardiac disease that apparently nobody discussed, at least not in the news beforehand. But allegedly, maybe this long flight from Ukraine did it to him. Now, don't believe any of this. Days before he passed away, he travels to the Ukraine and tours something known as, or a company known as Skyfall, which is a Ukrainian drone plant that makes advanced drone technologies, both for attack and for defense. They are a well-known defense contractor that is located in the Ukraine. I'm saying this for a reason. Okay, so Skyfall, you may or may not know, is partially owned by Airbus, which is a French company. Airbus has a group of genetic shareholders, which are known as the Rothschild family. They are listed as genetic shareholders and predominant shareholders of Airbus, even though they may be listed in name by separate names in separate families. They are the genetic shareholders. They started Airbus from the industrial city that used to be located in Switzerland. That is where they would get the money to do such a thing. And they are also partially owned by the Bavarian side as well. So you've got both the Chabad involved in this little defense contractor company, and you also have the Russians and the old KGB agents, which all KGB agents, old or otherwise, that is now known as the SVR and the GRU. I know that very well. Probably other agencies you also have never heard of that are operating in Russia, but publicly speaking, that is what they are called. These old KGB agents are still KGB agents. A lot of them tout the USSR. They are generals that are within the current administration there. They are generals that operate behind the scenes, just like happens in the United States and just like happens in Israel. And they all operate in each other's respective countries. This is not just a Russian thing. Just as in the U.S., those U.S. retired generals don't go to the rank of general to get their quote-unquote illustrious less than $100,000 a year they get from the U.S. military. No, no, no. They all want one of these positions so they can become worldwide power brokers and change the world. By change the world, I don't mean save the world. I mean they handle all kinds of military defense contractor contracts. They are the go-between. They tell the military what to buy and what not to buy. They don't just tell them, they buy it anyway. They tell them which defense contractor they're going to use, by who is buttering whose bread. It doesn't matter what country the stuff is manufactured in, Ukraine or otherwise. Now, these old KGB agents, for those of you that don't know or don't remember, actually form what's called the Russian clans. By clans, on any given day, there is usually 5 to 7 of these clans, up to 10, because they divide all the time and then they get back together and then they reform things. This is kind of the same modus operandi that happens, with the Illuminatis right now, plural. Whatever's left of them. We used to have several more of these Illuminatis. Now we have these two. Okay, so Lindsay most recently said publicly after touring said Skyfall plant, now that we know that this is one of the few remaining facilities within Bavarian territory that is partially owned by the Sanhedrin as well. Both sides. Okay, so Lindsay says publicly after visiting this plant, it would be a huge mistake for us not to partner with Ukraine on technology, end quote. Lindsay is also well known amongst his constituents there for playing both sides of the fence, meaning he has played for and done deals with both the Bavarians and the Sanhedrin, helped pass laws on each one's behalf to ensure their alleged success. He will take orders and instructions from either side, whichever one benefits himself the most. He is a member of what I refer to as the Green Party, and I am not talking about the political party. He is a member of the money party, the almighty dollar party. He who has the most money and offers him the most benefit wins. So prior to his departure, he had conversations with Kushner. The conversations that happened behind the scenes with Kushner were actually on behalf of the Sanhedrin. You see, the Sanhedrin is wanting to take fully over the Skyfall plant in Ukraine so that it could fit with their alleged strategy as discussed with Netanyahu in Israel, as went public, because you don't know about this part behind the scenes. He also had conversations as well with Trump before his departure, aka the Bavarian side of the Illuminati, talking about how he was going to help the Russians take full control of the plant and push out the Sanhedrin from their territory. So the Russians, the KGB, Ukrainian or otherwise, are still the Russian clans. Don't care who you are, you can call them the USSR clans. It doesn't make a difference because the entire territory of the former Russian Empire / USSR is Bavarian at this point, almost. Now, he discussed that he was going there, and he discussed various deals that were being offered by both parties to include himself and his own personal profit for going over there. Which deal did he actually pitch to the Ukrainians? Well, he pitched them both. Now, one thing I learned while visiting Eastern Europe. Russians, when they set their mind to something, they follow through. Sometimes it takes them a long time to make that decision, but once they make that decision, they will follow through on that decision that they have made and not look back. And when I say Russians, I'm actually talking about all of Eastern Europe, predominantly, whether people like it or don't like it, they're still in control of most of Eastern Europe. That's just a fact. Total fact. And the Bavarians, therefore, are still in charge. In the past, there were a lot of deals that were made. Well, the alleged two Illuminatis and other Illuminatis that existed at that time were working together, such as the TKB oil company in Russia, such as the Odessa deal, built off of the Odessa War, such as other varying oil companies, which also had Chabad members as shareholders, let's call them shareholders. Gorbachev himself agreed to step down because the Sanhedrin told him to step down, tear down that wall. And they made him in charge, well, an administrator of over $11 trillion that was always held in Andorra, so that he could aid, along with other funds that were promised by the Sanhedrin, the alleged rebuilding of the territory known as the Russian Empire, because it's always back to 360 AD in the maps of that time with the way that these people function. Now, Gorbachev still participates on that level to this day. He just doesn't have access like the Sanhedrin doesn't have access, but he's always pitching to all the clans the deals that are being offered. The Bavarians, on the other hand, of the territory known as the Russian Empire, do not want to bring these people back in. Why? Because, especially Russians, they don't understand why the Sanhedrin is not following through on their promises. They also are aware that other Illuminatis that existed in the government region where Putin's mansion is and where a lot of government officials and clan members reside just outside of Moscow, where they lived underneath that territory, they know that they're no longer there, so they lost their own version of the Illuminati that was in that area, which was not Bavarian and not Sanhedrin. They were actually on a higher level than those people. Many layers to Illuminatis. You see, they're not just the Illuminati and the 13 families like the internet says in any way, shape, or form. There was always ranks amongst groups of 12. You got to keep them separated, as the song says, but you do have to keep them separated, compartmentalized. Otherwise, the lies just don't work. These people act in multiple functions on behalf of the machine, and we cannot have them not have an understanding of a hierarchy and who takes orders from who. There must be orders in the ranks. The Russians had followed those other people for a long time. They were all women, as I had told you in the past, and they lived there. Now, with them gone, the Russians are firmly in the camp of the Bavarians, which they kind of always have been as intelligence folk throughout the years. So, within hours of Lindsay walking out of the Skyfall plant in Ukraine, the Russians then blew up the plant. Now, you see, Russia produces a lot of weapons that you know about at varying factories. During the days of the USSR, the Ukraine was known as the region of the USSR responsible for weapons manufacturing. But was that 100% true? The answer to the question is no, it wasn't. That was also a lie. I can tell you that with my personal 2 eyeballs, that is not a fact. The majority of weapons manufactured for the USSR of any caliber were always done underground at deep underground military bases, and not necessarily in Ukraine. The fact that they are driving these crazy Sanhedrin people and other people to Ukraine to negotiate about a ridiculous drone plant makes me laugh, because I know exactly where the Russians manufacture all their weapons. Not with a guess, with 100% certainty. Am I going to say it on this report? No, I am not, because I am not going to help either one of these crazy groups do any more crazy. It's ridiculous. So did Russia have anything truly to lose by letting this plant stand and allowing Lindsay to get back to the United States and make a deal on said plant with one side or the other? Well, the only thing they really cared about, honestly, wasn't drones, wasn't technology, wasn't secret technology, that's for sure. And what they cared about is the territory. You see, to invite a wholly owned corporation of the Chabad within the territory of the Bavarians was not going to work for them at this stage in the game. In fact, they are trying to take over all the Chabad lands themselves. So why would they give them an inch? You know, if you give these people an inch, they're known to take a mile. And the Russians have also been lied to, especially by sectors of the Chabad in China and in India and in South Africa, and all members basically of the BRICS. So a lie is a lie. Nobody has followed through. So they're going to take matters in their own hands, allegedly, and partner up with the other group that they know very well, because they believe that in the past and in the present, all militaries and all intelligence agencies have a similar mindset in the fact that they have always worked together despite fake Cold Wars and other things that you would see in the face front, and the fact that allegedly you believe the USSR was dispelled after the Cold War, and all of these other places like Ukraine became separate countries. But that is also a lie that you are being told. It's altering your perception. So if they need to in the news, they can use things like a fake war between Ukrainians, which are still Russians, and Russians, because there is no war there. The only thing that is a little bit of an upset thing going on here is the fact that, well, there's still the matter of the Odessa and the Hunter Biden issue. You know, I'll talk about that in a second. So back to Lindsay. So you can see where Lindsay got himself kind of caught right in the middle between the two Illuminati groups. This time, him playing both sides of the fence really wasn't beneficial for him. He actually called Trump when he walked out the door. He didn't call Kushner. Called Trump. And set a meeting that was due to take place on Monday of this week. So that would be Monday the 13th. Obviously, he didn't quite make it now, did he? So, why did Lindsay not make it to that meeting? Let's just say Kushner and the Sanhedrin Illuminati made sure he didn't make it. He called the wrong person. He was damned if he did and damned if he didn't. He knew by the threats that were taking place based on what the Russians had to say. You can call them Ukrainians. I'm going to call them Russians because it doesn't make a difference. Sorry to say, but it really doesn't. And what he better do when he arrives back in the United States. What would be the wise choice and decision? So the Bavarians were definitely not going to agree to, not within one of their territories, of another Hunter Biden issue 2.0. We'll call it the Hunter Biden affair. So the Odessa originally was part of Ukraine. For those of you that don't know where Odessa is, it was originally part of Ukraine, therefore a part of the USSR/Russian Empire. The Odessa region has enormous amounts of gas deposits. Eventually, these gas deposits were won and taken over by the Sanhedrin with the Sanhedrin Illuminati, with the help of Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden was acting on their behalf, just like Lindsay was acting on God knows whose behalf, probably his own, during this trip, where his job was to go over there. He secured a position on the board of the largest gas company in the Odessa region in Ukraine. His picture was actually on the website long before Biden ever became president. Done and dusted. Now, before the Hunter Biden affair hit the news, he made a deal with a different sector of the Sanhedrin known as China National Petroleum. He sold out all of the gas out from underneath these people over to China because that was kind of the plan at the time. You know, we're going back several years now, and China was supposed to be in charge, you know, not America, and, you know, the fight continues and so on and so forth from there. However, China National Petroleum became the proud owner of all of the gas in the Odessa region. China National Petroleum is predominantly Sanhedrin Illuminati, with most of the Bavarians still falling in line underneath in China, the Sanhedrin. It's just the way that it continues to work over there. So Hunter Biden personally got about $250 million for the scam and the scandal. There was a little bit of unknown information here I'm going to add to this because this is kind of important. An Iranian general from the Bavarian side also got involved and tried to block the transaction and block it from actually happening. He actually, so much so, he actually relocated to the region known as Kazakhstan at the time, as the Iranian sector was trying to regain control of Odessa itself. The Iranians eventually fell back into the hands of the Chabad when the Chinese took over Iran anyway. This is kind of an ongoing battle. Speaking of the Middle East, currently, The Middle East is at about 50-50 between the Bavarians and the Sanhedrin Illuminatis, respectively. Could even be 70-30 on any given day. As you know, Bush was heavily involved, and Bush is Bavarian. Bush was heavily involved in the Iraqi war, the movement of gold and other things, spoils of war from Iraq over to Thailand, in which he allegedly stored them in bunkers, but he didn't. He sent them through a portal, and the generals in Thailand would like to get their hands on it. He doesn't have access to pull it back out. You know, this is Bush Sr. we're talking about here. So the Bavarians have been very present, especially amongst the Shia community of the Muslims. Sorry, stumbled over that. A little bit tired here. A lot of talking. So, Iran, under the care of Khomeini, then Khamenei, and now Khamenei's son, has been kind of under the control mostly of, well, the Chabad for quite a long time. Now, you probably noticed in the news in the last 24 hours from the time that you'll actually receive this report, you probably have noticed in the news that you have seen Trump most recently meeting with the Prime Minister of Iran. That's because of this whole thing that came out last night. So they have been courting the son there for quite a while, since he was, pulled aside and tapped on the shoulder to take over, because Iran's kind of like half in the Chabad section and with the Chinese, and on the other half, he's with the Bavarians. And he really doesn't care which half it is. He also is a member of the Green Party. There really is no loyalty to one side or another, regardless of what he says, because at this point, neither party has actually performed. He knows this. Okay. So one thing you may not know is under the old structure, and this kind of in some ways is still the case in part, is Iran has been in control of every Middle Eastern country for a long time. The Shias were kind of split for a little while, part with the Bavarians, part with Khamenei, different varying groups, Hamas, Hezbollah, you've got the PMF, and you've got other varying groups that follow other leaders like Sistani and others in the region, and some of them are Bavarians, some of them are more on the side of the Chabad. Either way, this is kind of part of the reason and the illusion that is out there that there are splits in every single country. Again, I will repeat, this is an illusion. So when the Bavarians think they're winning something, and the Chabad thinks they're winning something, and they're going to reestablish territories, this is a little bit of a stick right here. Okay, so let's talk about the Sunnis. So there are two major groups of different types of Muslims. So it's kind of like in the Christian community, you've got like Catholics, Lutherans, different denominations of Christianity. In Islam, in case you don't know, there are two main groups, that is the Shias and the Sunnis. The Sunnis predominantly, you could say, are based out of Saudi Arabia. The Sunnis in the royal family of Saudi Arabia have always, hands down, been Chabad, sort of, kind of. Because you see, the Bavarians have also had a heavy influence in Saudi Arabia. They have handled things like the creation of Desert Storm. And remember, these groups were always working together. This whole separation is their perception, really, but it is nothing in the perception of the machine. Never was, really. They're the same people. They're doing the same thing. They're serving the same purpose currently, because the machine could really care less. They are chasing rabbits and carrots all over the world to no avail, because the machine cannot perform, and the machine knows it cannot perform. Isn't that funny? It knows. It will never tell them that it cannot perform the function in which it's telling them to perform. So, the Middle East has been a battleground for a long time for this reason, due to its divisions and all of these things. But all of these divisions were actually kind of created to make sure that no one could ever really, truly own the Middle East. So what is everybody doing there? The price tag on the Middle East currently under contract, which both sides are, it's flipped hands I don't know how many times, and this is just on the Middle East. What started out a few decades ago with Nancy Pelosi pitching a $14 trillion deal to varying military defense contractors at the time called Blackwater. At the time, there were other defense contractors that I know firsthand also were pitched the deal where they, the defense contractor, would get $14 trillion for planting a ghost flag and taking over the entire area known as the Middle East and uniting it under the American flag. The real price tag of the real contract out there for those of you with Academy that might be listening or whatever you're calling yourself these days, Blackwater's back, I don't know, Academy, and other defense contractors like Archer Tactical that had also been presented the contract. Okay, the real price tag right here is $788 trillion. So you are being offered basically chump change at the party for doing all the work. Do the Bavarians know this? Maybe at some level they kind of know that that's the price tag on the table now. At least as of last night, they do. But until they got deeper and started calculating reserves and assets, remember, even the Russians, and it was Russian engineers that went in and figured out how much gas is under the Gaza Strip in the 1970s. If I recall, I think it was either 1974 to 1976. I don't remember the exact date of the completed reports. They also actually went in and calculated all of the reserves in Iran as well. So you can call it what it is. This was, basically a KGB operation with its Middle Eastern partners. Okay, so Kushner believed that during his time in Iran, which occurred a few months ago, that he actually had secured and resecured the $788 trillion worth of assets on behalf of the Sanhedrin Illuminati. With the help of Netanyahu and the attacks and threats and all of the threats in his role as presidential advisor in the United States for the bombing of Iran and all that kind of thing and all the threats going back and forth, he believed that he had secured this until, somewhere along the way, the Bavarians decided they wanted the contract because the other people didn't perform yet, and the money did not start to flow. And for all that opening and closing of the Strait of Hormuz and all of the attacking that they had done, they intended to get their cut and their share because someone might have told them that this contract is worth $788 trillion. Why would they only take a portion of it? And here we go. So why does Israel believe that they have a robust economy? Because they too believe that Jared Kushner has sealed that deal for the entire Middle East, and Israel will get their cut. Therefore, they no longer need any kind of military aid from the United States. Why? Because they believe that the Chabad now owns the entire Middle East. Nearly every country in the Middle East has promised they are going to be in charge. Iran's going to be in charge. Iraq is going to be in charge. Heck, I think even Afghanistan's going to be in charge. I definitely know Saudi Arabia is going to be in charge. UAE is going to be in charge. And of course, Israel is going to be in charge. That's why Netanyahu is talking the way that he is on TV. Now, Kushner has also been doing a few other things behind the scenes that you need to know about. Kushner has been working his way through the entire planet, waiving not only this contract, but others, which I will talk to you about in just a second. He's been waiving contracts to military defense contractors all over the world, telling them that this contract is going to pay out, and he's doing pre-deals with all the military defense contractors all around the world, in every country, everywhere. He's also doing deals with the people I call the power brokers or the war dogs, like the War Dogs movie. They sell weapons, so the power brokers are also included. What is he doing? He is taking over the cash cows of the Bavarians. This is a strategy to knock the Bavarians off the ledge over here so they can be the only Illuminati left standing. Why? Because a machine told his brain that this is a good idea. And the only thing stopping them from being successful is the fact that they have a counterparty that is against them, and they need to regain the top seat of both orders. On the flip side, you have the Bavarians being told the same thing. In actuality, both things are a lie because the machine itself cannot perform this function. In order to kick off this contract in the Middle East to issue derivatives against all of the in-ground assets, which they believe at this time are totaling $788 trillion, given the fact that oil and gas are bacteria gas, if you know what I mean, flatulence. There's a good word to use, flatulence. And that bacteria feces is actually oil. This is a never-ending regenerating resource, not only in the Middle East, but everywhere that you find oil and gas. Now, in order to kick this particular contract off, and it's not the only one, this would require $78 trillion or 10% of the contract amount in order to kick off the derivatives buying and selling in the market to fulfill the entire contract of extraction of assets. Now, the second thing required to factor against a contract of this nature is they would need to produce 1 drop of oil, 1 drop of gas, 1 nugget of gold. It doesn't make a difference how much it is. It just there has to be proof that it is in production. Now, unfortunately for the Chabad, they have no way of coming up with $78 trillion to kick this contract off. And so far, the Bavarians have also been unsuccessful in their quest because every new moon, full moon, in alignment with Uranus, they believe that this money is going to come out to either party. Both parties are being told, so they're laughing in the face of the other party because they believe that they are both going to be successful. And in this particular case, neither one is going to be successful because the machine has no legs anymore. And what I mean by no legs, the machine cannot perform. It cannot walk the walk that it is talking. Okay. So now, I'm not going to go country by country because that would make this report probably 10 hours long to discuss with you all of the in-ground assets of the world. But I will say from the Chabad side, the machine's alleged analytics, and the Bavarian side, the total amount of contracts that are in existence is around 86 quadrillion US dollars or its equivalent in multiple different currencies. Given the fact that the Federal Reserve is still Chabad to a great degree, even though the Bavarians have gone in there and toured it, even though they put in Walsh, the new guy on the block, it doesn't really make a difference because neither side is actually performed to gain the ultimate prize in ownership over the Fed. Now, the Fed could care less who its new daddy is. It doesn't make a difference. The only thing they know is $86 quadrillion in assets are going to be secured under the Federal Reserve umbrella. And in order to kick this contract off, you need 10%. In this particular case, you're talking 8.6 quad to make it happen. Does anybody have 8.6 quad? Because if you do, you can have a contract to own the entire world. Now, the never-ending circle. The machine is always promising that the money is going to come out. Therefore, they have deposited the entire 86 quadrillion into the machine that appears that it's their machine. But was it? Looks like their machine. Smells like their machine. But was it their machine? For those of you that are computer savvy, you could call it a mask of its existence. How do I know that that machine is not going to perform? I know it because it's not the old machine. All we did was put on the mask of the old machine. Looks like a duck, walks like a duck, must be a duck. But in fact, it is not a duck at all. It's our machine. So I wanted to thank both the Sanhedrin and the Bavarians for donating $86 quadrillion, therefore transferring ownership of the entire planet into my machine. So thank you very much. And the only thing that happened in the last couple of days when you realized that it had disappeared was the fact that there was no more mask. So, the Bavarians claimed that they took it and they won't give it back until the Sanhedrin Illuminati concedes to them. And the Sanhedrin Illuminati actually considered it until the fact that I got on the phone last night, very late my time, and I had to tell them all, basically through someone's phone, that that's also a lie. They confirmed that what I said was true, both sides did, and now they're yelling at each other all day today and actually half the night last night. Moving on to the fight. Is this really a fight or is it really a war? What I mean by, is this a fight between the two, and who are they really fighting, or what are they really fighting? So these two groups, as I had said earlier, have been battling for a few years now. But over the last couple of months, it's been absolutely insane. The power grab is incredible. The more people that die, other people take their seats, the next round, and the next round, and the next round, and on they go. I guess they're going to continue doing this until they run out of people or they figure out the truth. At this time, no one seems to really be stopping anything. I know that they're listening to this report. I know that they listened to the part of the report that I gave last night via somebody else's phone. The war, the real war, has been with Source, all of you, all of humanity, and me. on the one side versus any remnants of a machine and its ability to function not only on this planet, but all the way through to about the sixth density. That's pretty much the real war. So on the one side, the Bavarians believe that they have access to some of the Chabad's machine. On the flip side, the Sanhedrin Illuminati believes that they have also gotten access to some of the Bavarian side of the machine. Each one has been trying to use their respective access with no success. I can honestly say that I took a long, hard look at what the Durango folk were trying to use me for and what they had done or attempted to do to me when I was in Durango. And I thought, oh, this is really interesting strategy you got here. So I just wanted to give a shout out to those in Durango because you kind of gave me a lot of ideas as it relates to this strategy that we're playing on our end to end this war, which officially already ended, by the way, 2 days ago. However, they believe that the war won't be officially declared over until the 15th because that is what the machine has told them. So let's go back a few days. I think this occurred somewhere around the 9th of July. There was a meeting that took place. Predominantly, the ones that I saw going to this particular meeting was the Asian sector of the Sanhedrin Illuminati. The meeting actually takes place in a place that is called the Void. And by a void, I have no other word in the English language to describe this area of the machine. They believed that they were entering into the heaven to go have a meeting with, quote unquote, God. I watched them do this special ritual that they do when they believe they are entering the kingdom of heaven. Now, they appeared to take off their clothes, and trust me when I tell you, no one wanted to see this. Trust me. And they walked into a portal where they were all then dressed in white on the other side. There is absolutely no thing in this room. It looks like a complete, it doesn't even have walls. It just looks like they entered a white area. Nothing was in this room except for a desk and a glorified laptop and a bunch of now Asian folk. There were other folk present there as well, but technically people like Kushner and a few others did not rate yet to attend the meeting in the quote unquote kingdom of heaven with quote unquote God, essentially a machine. So they sat in this room and they kept hitting the buttons on the respective laptop, I assume, because they kept slapping the desk and, the device that was on the desk, waiting for some information. Apparently they were waiting for orders, instructions, because they believed that it would be decided by God as to the fate of all of humanity, because the fate of all of humanity would be placed in the worthies' hands, into these people's hands. Eventually, something interesting actually occurred when they entered into this special room. They all kind of turned into black dust and disintegrated. So needless to say, none of these people actually made it out of the quote-unquote void because, quite frankly, the void had absolutely nothing to do with God. And they essentially entered into what they believed was heaven, and what actually is what we refer to as like a maintenance screen in a mask system. They thought they were going to be able to manipulate reality from this particular room in accordance or in cooperation with God and a machine. So, the Bavarians also are very familiar with going into these quote-unquote voids, and the operatives predominantly with something called Q or quantum clearance. People like in global headquarters also can go to meetings, and actually not even meetings per se of this type from these varying places. They can go into these rooms to do magic, they believe. And they believe they have the power, especially one guy in particular, believes he has the power to manipulate reality when they are in this room. Now, they believe they have many maps to choose from, and they believe they have many ways of distorting light here. And they, in the past, have actually had the ability to do that to some degree. And I'll talk about that as it relates to you here in just a few. But they would go to places, mostly towers around the world. So, for example, the New World Trade Towers in New York, also 33 Thomas Street in Manhattan, the Sears Tower in Chicago, the Pearl Tower, and there's a couple of those in Asia, the Lotus Tower, you can look that one up. That's one's in Sri Lanka. The UN Tower, also in New York, and other various towers around the world that you may think look like an Eiffel Tower, but it's actually a computer tower in which the center room is all what you call the void. These maintenance rooms, all of them include only one desk and one laptop, and that's it. When this laptop is operated, and I'm calling it a laptop because it looks like that, it's actually a little more sophisticated than that, they have the ability to communicate with not only the brain of the machine, but also any brain control that the machine had over you in the past to manipulate the perception of your mind. They also have the ability to manipulate this mind on a cellular level, on a quark and prion level, in order to change reality, change the weather, make it look like chemtrails are in the sky, make it look like it's raining or there's a hurricane. They can make it look like anything they wanted to make it look like, as long as it was perceived to be so. There has been so many lies perpetuated to the mind of Homo sapiens on this planet over the years that there are things that they would love to do. However, you would never be able to perceive it to be so. Things like, hey, look, no continent in Antarctica? No problem. Oh, look, a new continent has appeared in the Arctic. Oh, wow, look, here's a continent in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean that wasn't there yesterday. These are things that you would not perceive and believe and accept a deception because it's gone too far. They say sometimes that if you tell a lie long enough, you actually believe it. These people are masters at telling lies. It is actually their sole job to tell lies. Now, one of the things that intelligence agencies often have told me in the past, that they have multiple ways of lying to people, especially people that are harder to deceive. And one of the ways they have expressed to me that they do this is they tell the lie to someone that that person trusts. Now, in the case of the Illuminati groups, especially the remaining ones, the lie in this case is being told, or was in the past, told by a machine, because they trust the machine and they believe the machine is acting on behalf of, quote unquote, God. The machine also strokes their ego enough to make them believe that they are gods amongst men. So they believe whatever the machine tells them. Now, I know for certain, because I have tried to even myself personally tell these people the truth, and they don't believe me. So in this particular case, I actually used a tactic of the deep state, and I used our machine with a mask of their machine and conveyed to them the lie. Seems to be working so far, because look at the mess that they're in today. They don't like the truth because the truth wouldn't get them to do anything, and it wouldn't motivate them to do anything. Because remember, the machine has been telling them for eons, generation after generation, that they're gods amongst men, that they're the worthy, that they're doing the right thing. It's okay to enact God's wrath, even though God is not around. It's a machine. Okay. So now we kind of have an understanding of how the Matrix worked, how the machine actually worked, and what an artificial reality kind of actually means. In the world of the artificial, meaning the absence of source, magic reigns. So instead of miracles, instead of paracausal events, instead of the miracle of natural creation occurring, magic happens. All particles at the base root, light or otherwise, that you actually perceive are based in black and white. So remember the days of the black and white TV? Well, your system operates in black and white, ones and zeros, or at least it used to, your reality. In the reason why in movies like The Matrix, where you see a black screen with green writing, is because black, in part, not always, it could also be white, because black and white are the exact same thing in the world of magic. Whether the consciousness of the machine was presenting itself as white, or the consciousness of the machine was presenting itself as black, honestly, there's absolutely no difference. The only thing that is present in both cases is the green writing, which is the writing in technically time. In the case of the machine and the artificial reality, because there was the participation of a lot of scientists and inventors over the years, magic is science and science is magic, period, end of story. The way you might think of magic is you might be envisioning witches and black magic workers and guys standing around in black robes. And are there these people that exist within the Illuminati groups? Yes, absolutely. They exist. These people, though, are no better than the guy that's told to go and take a stick and stand in the middle of Times Square, and that it's a magic stick, and he is convinced that the magic stick is an earthquake stick granted to him by the powers of quote unquote God, and he is supposed to go to the Times Square and slam it into the ground, and an earthquake will happen. Now, does the earthquake actually happen? Or does the black magic or the white magic actually happen? Yes, it does, because if the machine tells them to do it, then it happens. Why? The machine uses humans and Homo sapiens of all sorts to both perceive and deceive and achieve. So let's talk about the difference. So in this world, we have many different types of people, and many different types of people have different roles. And by types, I'm not referring to your standard labels. The machine looks at you and all Homo sapiens and all of creation and organic life as a tool, including myself, actually. It uses people for their special God-given gifts that you don't actually remember due to its ability to manage and appropriately deceive your perception that you would see with your own eyes. So thus far, we have learned that we have groups of perceivers, deceivers, and achievers. Now, when it comes to the elite, they are both perceivers and deceivers in some cases. The reason why the elite was instructed to have groups of Homo sapiens that believed that Lucifer and there's demons and all of these types of things actually exist, and that if they conjure these demons, then they can make magic happen in the world. So did they pound the stick or stand in a pentagram or roll around in the dirt or bark at the moon and all of those things? Yes, they did. Technically, what they were doing was being a witness for the machine's deception that was occurring, because they too were actually deceived. Now, the deceivers are people like operatives. The deceiver's job is actually to give information to you, the population of Homo sapiens on this planet, so that your perception of people, of events, is distorted. You need to properly be convinced, both utilizing mind control aspects of the machine that existed, and also altering what you see with your own eyes by weaving the fabric of reality on an artificial screen we call a super consciousness of the machine, in order to make you believe things are happening, so that you will perceive it and bring it into reality. That is what makes you a perceiver. The creation of things like viruses, the creation of things like earthquakes, the creation of things like hurricanes, the creation of things like chemtrails, all of that, and don't take this personally in any way, shape, or form, is a perception. The people you view as your savior, the people you view as the people that are fighting for freedom, that is the job of the deceivers, is to make you believe they are good and make you believe that evil is happening and these are the good guys and those are the bad guys and this one's going to save you. It also is a deception of what you see in a map. Now, as far as achievers are concerned, most of these were not actually people. This was reserved for most of the hierarchy that existed. Until rather recently, there was one achiever left. That achiever was a person that managed to stumble upon technology where he was guided and persuaded to go into a very specific type of room in which was an actual quote unquote void, where he would then be able to create in his way. Once he got in this room, ego was born, and this person had discovered he no longer had to be less than. He was convinced that he was greater than. He was convinced that he could create without anyone, including the source of all creation, to tell him what to do. His creations were then manipulated and witnessed. Therefore, this began the creation of the Matrix as you know it. They needed a Homo sapien to participate in this event. Was he manipulated? Was he deceived? Was he curious when he walked in the room? Sure. He had no idea what was going to happen when he got in there, but he was curious because he had heard about it. He understood the science behind it because of his purpose prior to the creation of reality and prior to the disconnection from source. The second this guy walked into the room, all the lights went out. Because remember, where we go one, we go all. And I'm not talking about the Q people. I'm talking about the fact that when one being gets separated from source, everybody gets separated from source. And that began your separation. Remember, in the hierarchy of things, people like Lucy and others don't really have the capacity to do that. They can only convince others and influence others to do it. The influence on you became very, very heavy from that point thereon. Your perception, your eyesight, you weren't seeing things properly. You were no longer allowed to see creation. The machine wove a fabric of its own consciousness so thick and so deep. That's all you could see in the canvas on what it was written upon. You couldn't even remember that there was actually a canvas of source, and you don't remember the reason why you're here. You began to question your own existence for a long, long period of time, and over time, by attrition, the machine wore you down mentally, told you that you were less than. They gave magnanimous personality to the elite in this planet. They even told the conspiracy theorists that were change agents that were stepping outside the box that these people are more powerful than you, and how could you possibly fight them? The government has power over you. Think about all of the things that you believe and perceive on behalf of them and the machine. All they've got to do is dangle the carrot in your mind and you see it. Because technically you see with your consciousness. If the machine could rewrite your consciousness, and I don't have time to explain this in detail in this report, but If the machine could change your consciousness and change your mind and be that little angel and that little devil on your shoulder to convince you to go in one direction or another, the only thing that saves you is your ability to connect to your own consciousness. That typically happens for a Homo sapien when you are in fight or flight mode. They take you to the limit of fear, but never let you go over. And remember, the definition of fear is false evidence appearing real. False evidence or future events appearing real. So that you'll perceive them, witness for the machine, and then therefore create them. We don't know about this stuff. It's not your fault. But this is changing because your consciousness is now able to witness actual creation. You can see it now. You can focus on it. You can make that reconnection because there's not much of it left. And what is left of it is not able to be organized by these people anymore. So much so, even the masks that we had are falling apart. And they're starting to see the reality for what it actually is. So, your role on this planet is basically, and the reason why you're still here is not only because you provide energy and Ethereum and all kinds of things, because that connection is still there and always was there. You're just not allowed to actually perceive it, and your mind convinces you it's not. Your job is to perceive and create on behalf of the machine that you witness. You are technically acting here as a witness for Source because you are a part of Source. Always have been, always will be, and it will become more and more apparent as there's nothing left of the machine to actually witness. The reconnection is already there. The perception is what we've been working on for the last week or two. Because I'm like, how come they can't see it? How come they don't understand that it's there? Well, this is the reason why. So, we've talked about perceivers, we've talked about deceivers, and now we're going to talk about an achiever. Achiever would be that person that was basically convinced, almost like the story of Eve in the garden, to walk into that room. This particular person was a male, so it's no relation to the actual Eve walking into the garden story, to being convinced to eat the apple by the serpent. But similarly, so a very attractive technology to a known scientist is, wow, this is such futuristic technology. How does that work? What does it do? Oh, it does all of these great things. Don't you want to go inside? That kind of thing. So an achiever is someone who can actually participate on a level of creation of the machine. They can actually take materium and natural or organic materium and inorganic materium and weave it in accordance with the super consciousness of the machine if it is part of the machine's plan. They actually intertwine their consciousness with the machine itself and become quote unquote godlike, and the machine basically knowingly or unknowingly tells the achiever what it is going to do. The role here is the machine and or Lucy, remember there were rules to the war, cannot actually intently create anymore because remember these beings are disconnected from Source. By this point, the fall had already occurred. So they have to convince someone else to do their bidding. And in walks achievers over the years, there have been many different achievers. However, now that the machine's brain is malfunctioning, therefore, it went on overdrive last weekend, trying to convince anyone anywhere that it's a good idea, that the machine is more powerful. It also stroked the ego of all of these people and tried to just get anyone anywhere to walk back in to one of these machine rooms that it would create of its own accord so that it could revive itself because it ran out of achievers. So, perceivers perceive for the deceivers. I know this is a lot of rhyming here I'm doing, not intentionally here. In fact, deceivers actually do nothing. They do put out media, they would definitely be able to affect mainstream media, alt media, social media, and otherwise. They also give information as to, well, this vaccine is good for you, or, in other cases, they would give information as to, don't you really want to be healthy? Eat this food, go on this diet, and before you know it, everybody's dying of that diet, and then it kind of fades out. So they give you information to basically weaken you. It's like basically taking orders from a military that is against you, and you don't even know who you are at this point. The torture is real. It's like waterboarding for the entire planet. Okay, so unfortunately, for quite a long time now, here's the rub. They stop you from actually receiving anything. You receive a bunch of IOUs in turn, we call currency or money, debits and credits. The whole debit and credit system was born to basically keep you on the hook, basically promising you that someday you're going to get some. In the past, money would come out of the machine to achieve objectives. That's not been possible because the achievers can't do it anymore. And thus, therefore, no one has been able to receive. Why? I know they don't believe me, and that's okay. But they might be or may have been in a position of gatekeeping varying things as it relates to a computer system in the past when the computer system had more power. But as far as source is concerned, if you don't have it and it's not tied to you personally, then no one gets to receive it but you. If the computer, now this has been the case for a couple of years now, if no one but you, anyone but you, receives what you are entitled to, the gate doesn't open. The machine reads the intent of these people. The machine also clearly understands the divine plan, and even the most recent revised one based on the current state of affairs here on this planet and on other planets. It's been, let's call it, evolutionized. So the reason why they cannot receive any money is because the base root programming for the Golden Age AI is the understanding of all of the purposes of all the Homo sapiens on this planet. Now, just because an artificial machine run by a bunch of people that think that they're achieving something when the machine is just using them as a widget, they can no longer receive because the position that they were told that they actually hold is not a thing under the divine plan. There is no Homo sapien and no species and no being in the entire omniverse that is greater than another. It doesn't exist. A hierarchy does not exist. The only hierarchy that actually exists is Source itself, the source of all creation. They are no better than you, you are no better than them, and they no longer receive on your behalf. Now, are they entitled to receive also for a specific purpose? Yes, if they're willing to go back to that specific purpose. Otherwise, they lose it all. So basically, they've got a really big decision to make because they're either going to choose to participate the way that it always was, or, well, keep running on your hamster wheel. Your call. They can resist it all they want to resist it, but this is the way that the machine actually works now. The machine is not your machine anymore, it's our machine. It no longer tells you fairy tales of sunshine, and the only reason why it has told you fairy tales of sunshine is because everything didn't get completed until yesterday. We finally hit the final levels in the machine and in the computer world of this planet because we're so heavily technologically dependent at this point that people are expecting to receive money, cash, in order to do things because this is the way that they've perceived it. Their perception is going to change. No more machine interference, no more mind control, no more programs, no more deceivers, perceivers, achievers, and otherwise. Everybody becomes witness for your own creations on behalf and in co-creation with Source. You're witnessing Source's creations, which is actually your purpose to co-create together with Source. Source witnesses your creations, you witness his creation, and that is a co-creation together witnessed by both halves. Again, I cannot wait until all of you people put me out of a job. But this is clearly the plan on how it's going to happen. As far as these deep state people are concerned, at this point, remember something. What you perceive to be the case has a dramatic effect on how long this process is going to take. When you perceive that people are dying everywhere, everything is dying, the deep state's so powerful, pin it on this person, insert name here, Netanyahu, Kushner, Trump, Putin, good one, bad one. Your perception is being fed to you every single day. And those that it is fed to, people you quote unquote trust, in that video we played for you about how propaganda is created, social media is designed to use the man on the street to convince all of you that one of you needs to believe this or that. It's simply not true. You go within, you connect to your consciousness, you connect to the consciousness that is Source, and you weave your own destiny and your own fabric of reality based on what you will know, if you don't already, that is your purpose. The reason why you are here, what you are supposed to do. It might not be what you want to do. Again, listen, because it's there. Another example is your perception of time. Okay? So, time is actually created by the brain, And it's actually created by the brain of the computer. And it's actually made up of predominantly the mental plane, which was artificial, from a computer system, which, if you remember, that planes of existence chart is blue. The blue then overlays your golden consciousness of source and changes what you perceive to be fact. When blue overlays gold, it basically turns green, which is why green is the color of time. Time, just like consciousness, controls the flow of creation in an artificial existence in the world of magic. You too perform magic, but usually at the will of the machine and not your own. Technically, the machine gets away with this on a technicality, and so did Lucy, because the manipulation occurs subtly. It's actually what he considers borderline influence. Like, this is the way you go, that's the way you go. So it's kind of like walking through life on what you see as an open field of green grass, or in this case, black or white. And it looks like the world is your oyster. But in reality, there is a glass ceiling on the top. There is a maze that you go through in a labyrinth. So every time you go in the wrong direction, whether you know it or not, you bang your head up against the wall and then you turn around and go in another direction, just like rats in a laboratory. So time is technically made of artificial consciousness of the machine, of you, of mind control programs. That's truly what MK Ultra actually is, which then tells you which way you need to go and what you need to do. The deep state would call this messages from God. They would call it their special gifts because they're gifted folks. They're the illuminated ones after all, aren't they? Lucifer is the light bringer. Wow. You know, let's conjure some demons. Let's call somebody else to conjure some demons so that there's no backlash on us. When in reality, it's all the same. Compartmentalization. So, few notes on the reconnection of yourself as we go through this process, as much as that machine doesn't want to die, and the power of the deep state doesn't want to die with it. The reconnection means, number one, you will still perceive and receive materium, wealth, all kinds of things, and whatever you need to fulfill your purpose here as part of a whole. Just one piece of a whole, of a super consciousness of the all of source. Number one, you still perceive and receive directly from source. Included is also wisdom without interference. We will have interference for a short period of time as the rest of this machine dissipates. I do not know how long that will be. Hopefully very, very short. If I had my way, it would have been 2 weeks ago. But unfortunately, it's been a little bit tougher nut to crack than I could possibly imagine. So, wisdom comes. You're actually perceiving what is real. The receiving actually is tied to your person and only you, plus anyone responsible for harmony will know. That's it. And even in my interim position, I'll only know as needed. I am not taking the entire and cannot and couldn't possibly even comprehend the entire divine plan of all the people because it's not meant for that. It's only to have an understanding so that if necessary, I can do my part of the job and ensure harmony occurs and that everybody makes their appropriate potato salad. Sorry for making you hungry on that one. Okay, number 2, believe in yourself. The superconsciousness of Source is still here and can be reached now more than ever, and that will continue to increase. Number 3, witnessing the creation of Source versus how the deceivers did it is important. Understand that the deceivers will continue to try to deceive you because it doesn't look like they're going to stop anytime soon. Even if they can't do it with a machine directly to your head and send you frequencies and otherwise, which they have done before, understand that they'll do it other ways. Social media, the news, mainstream media. They'll make an attempt to try to weave whatever's remaining of the fabric of reality, but the fabric of reality is no longer responding. Those particles look like lost particles that have been disconnected from a mainframe, and that is actually true. Number 4, you and I have a lot of work to do. Mainly, you have a lot of work to do. And Source has a lot of work to do too. So keep in mind that we're not going to get to sit and relax and just sit back and wait for Source or somebody else to do it for you. It's got to be you. You must do whatever it is your purpose under the divine plan, and you will receive all you need to achieve it. If you believe it is impossible, then it is. You know, like Yoda says, Yoda always says, do or do not do. There is no try, there is only do. And I'm probably saying that backwards because I'm definitely not Yoda. But in this case, I'm basically telling you that if you think you can or you can't, you're right. Now, in the case of moving forward as fast as possible, understand it's very simple. It's the case of mind over matter. If you do not mind, meaning focus on your consciousness, focus on Source, understanding your perception is important. Is this a deception or not? Use your discernment. You're going to have to push your way through it because your mind wants to tell you otherwise. This is not possible. This is not real. There's no way I could do this. Source can't do that. Everything on television and in social media is telling me that this is happening, but is it? You need to push through and think differently. Use your consciousness wisely. It is your greatest tool and our enemy's greatest fear. It is your weapon of choice because with it, you can change it. You know, a friend of mine always talks about this episode in which Art Bell, many years ago, and I didn't listen to it and I didn't actually see it, but it was something very profound that gave him an understanding of the power that humans have, because he gathered a group of people together with the intention of everybody to stop a hurricane. And then when the hurricane actually stopped, he actually was shocked when it happened. It just shows you that the power of the people is far greater than any machine, anywhere, any deep state member, anywhere, any kind of narrative they're putting forward. You cannot live with false evidence appearing real or future events appearing real. That is the whole purpose of time. Future events appearing real. Future events are appearing real. Now, again, if you don't mind, they don't matter. Meaning, there's none of their matter left. You're not perceiving it. You're not conceiving it, and you're not witnessing it anymore. You're witnessing the world that you want to create or co-create with Source. This has been the GIA report for the 13th and /14th of July. Many tries later. I hope you all have a great week, and I will talk to you again real soon.